I knew from the start that 15 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms was not a casual dose. It was a plunge into the unknown, a leap over the edge of reality. I took the dose with a sense of trepidation, swallowing the bitter, earthy pieces with water until the bag was empty. There was no going back. Within 20 minutes, my stomach churned and a wave of discomfort settled in. The familiar tingle of mushrooms began crawling up my spine, but this was different. Stronger, darker. The world started to shift around me, the colors becoming too bright, too sharp, and I could feel an oppressive weight in the room. My heart was pounding. Anxiety mixed with dread as I felt myself being pulled away from my normal state of mind. The walls started to breathe, undulating like some living organism, and a cold sweat broke out over my body. This was the point of no return. The descent begins. The room warped, bending inwards as if trying to consume me. My vision blurred and reality cracked, splintering like glass hit by a hammer. Everything began to fragment, and a deafening hollow sound filled my ears, like the roar of an approaching storm. My sense of self started to melt, thoughts twisting into incoherent loops, each one pulling me deeper. I could feel an inexplicable presence, a cold, oppressive entity that seemed to watch from the periphery of my vision. I was no longer alone in the room. I closed my eyes to escape, but the darkness behind my eyelids was worse. I was falling, spinning through a tunnel of swirling colors and grotesque faces. Each face stared at me with hollow, empty eyes, laughing silently as I tumbled further down. I tried to scream, but the sound died in my throat, lost in the chaos. Total ego death. Time ceased to exist. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and I had no idea how long I'd been under. My body was gone, and I was just a flicker of consciousness trapped in an endless void. Memories, fragments of my life, shattered like a broken mirror, every piece falling away until there was nothing left but terror. I felt a suffocating pressure, a sense of being trapped inside an infinite loop with no escape. Every second, I relived the sensation of death, dying over and over again, unable to wake from this nightmare. The entity was no longer in the periphery, it was inside my mind, its presence gnawing at my sanity. I was shown things, horrors beyond comprehension. My worst fears, failures, and regrets played out like a twisted theater, each scene drenched in shadow and despair. The faces of loved ones morphed into grotesque caricatures, mocking me, and I was convinced I had died and entered some purgatory. I was trapped in the cracks of reality, somewhere between life and death. The terrifying visions. When I opened my eyes, I was in a different place. A forest of rotting skeletal trees, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The ground was alive, writhing, with a carpet of insects that swarmed up my legs, biting and stinging. My body twisted and controlled by some sadistic force, limbs stretching and snapping back as if I were a puppet controlled by some sadistic force. Shadows moved among the trees, vague humanoid shapes that whispered my name in a language I couldn't understand. Each whisper tore at my mind, unraveling my thoughts. The sky above split open, revealing a massive writhing eye that watched with cold indifference. I felt exposed, judged by something far beyond human comprehension. I saw my own face reflected in the pupil, distorted and twisted with agony, eyes wide with terror. The whispers grew louder, blending into a cacophony of screams that pierced my skull. I couldn't tell if they were my own screams or the echoes of countless others who had been lost in this realm. Loss of reality. I was no longer sure if I was alive. The line between my body and the surroundings dissolved completely, leaving me floating in a void of endless fractals and monstrous patterns. The visuals were overwhelming. geometric shapes, twisted creatures, and indescribable symbols flashed by faster than I could comprehend. I saw other realms, alien landscapes where nothing made sense, where the laws of reality had been shattered. I could feel myself splitting, fracturing into countless versions of me, each one screaming, each one lost in its own personal hell. Hours later, though it felt like an eternity, the intensity began to fade. I was dragged back into my body, my room slowly coming back into focus, though it was still distorted and shifting. My face was wet with tears I didn't remember shedding, and my body ached as if I'd been through a physical battle. The room was bathed in an eerie yellow light, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me back. I was left hollow, exhausted, and shaken to my core. The come down, a fragile return to sanity. The aftermath was a blur. It took me days to piece together what had happened, and I was haunted by the feeling that a part of me had been left behind in that twisted dimension. I had glimpsed the edges of my own sanity, and it had stared back, mocking me.